Hey there students, I hope you're doing good. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're back with another video concerning another chapter in year 1 entitled Second World War. So like I told you before on Facebook or in my previous video, I told you that I'm going to tackle this subject. For a lot of you have contacted me, and apparently most of you are dealing with the Second World War. So instead of doing this in one long video of 60 minutes or more, which will make you bored actually, but I decided to dedicate a playlist for the Second World War, just like I did for the First World War. First we're going to talk about an overview of the Second World War, which is today's video. It will play the role of an introduction to the topic, and then in the upcoming videos we're going to tackle different aspects of the topic. For instance, the causes of the war itself, and the consequences of the war, and also the US entry to the war. So yeah, we're going to decide that later on. But before I start, as usual, I invite you to like the Facebook page of this channel in order to be notified whenever I post something new, and also subscribe to my channel if it's not already done. That would encourage me to do more and help you out during the period of exams. With that being said, we shall start with an overview of the Second World War. So for those of you who don't know what is the Second World War, and I'm pretty sure most of you must know something about it, because we must have dealt with it in high school or even before. So you have this legendary war, this world war that killed a lot of people. When I say a lot of people, it means both soldiers and civilians. In other words, people died although they weren't fighting a battle. So this is just to notice the unfairness of the war. So to give you some statistics, approximately 70 million people served in the armed forces during the war, if you combine all the nations that participated in the war, and 17 million of them died. So you have 70 million people served, and 17 million of them died. So you might say, nowadays we might say, yeah, we're billions, but at that time, 70 million people was a great deal. So losing 17 million would affect the life of all human beings at that time. So the war happened between 1939 and 1945, and during the 20th century, Earth was not as populated as it is nowadays. Also, you should know where the fighting took place. It didn't take place in one specific area only, but it took place in different parts of the world, or if I may say, on the continents of Africa, Asia, Europe, as well as on the high seas. You see, many nations took part in this terrible event that humanity had to go through. Actually, it's a terrible one. And some of the nations were still under the occupation of other nations, like, if you want, Algeria. So Algeria at that time was still colonized by France, and France took part in the Second World War. So they used the Algerians indirectly, if I may say, in order to help France win the war against the Axis power, or Germany at that time. So not only we have some nations who participated directly in the war, such as Great Britain and France, but these empires had colonies at the time, and they used them in order to help the empire win the war. And I explained all these notions in my previous videos concerning the First World War. The Second World War started when Germany invaded Poland. It was in September the 1st, 1939, and it marked the beginning of the Second World War, because Poland had a pact with France and Great Britain. Therefore, when Germany invaded Poland, Great Britain and France declared war on Poland on Germany. The United States, on the other hand, entered the war later on, much later on, following a surprise attack by Japan on the U.S. Pacific Fleet in Hawaii. So Japan decided to attack the United States of America after a very long period of tension between the two nations, and after that attack on Pearl Harbor, I will go into details in the next or the upcoming videos. So yeah, Japan decided to attack the United States of America. Therefore, it marked the U.S. entry to war. So you may ask why? Why did Japan decided to attack the United States of America? You see, during the Great Depression, which I also spoke about in on my channel. So the Great Depression of the 1930s, Japan sought to solve its economic problems by forcing its way into China. And that started approximately during the 1930s, or maybe more precisely in 1931, with an invasion of Manchuria. So the United States was trying to stop Japan's global expansion. Therefore, they decided to pass economic sanctions against Japan. So the United States began passing economic sanctions against Japan, such as these economic sanctions were related to aircraft exports, for instance, oil and scrap metal, and all the key goods that a nation needs in order to flourish and develop their industry. So after the economic sanctions, Japan decided to sign the tripartite pact with Germany and Italy. Germany and Italy were the two fascist regimes back then that were at war against the Allies. So Germany and Italy were at war with or against France and Great Britain, and the United States was at war against Japan. So Japan is a friend of Germany and Italy, so the United States of America became a friend of Great Britain and France. Simple math. So the United States and its allies halted Japanese expansion at different battles, of course. One of the most important battles that you must know is the Battle of Midway that occurred in June 1942. And of course, we had other campaigns where the United States of America won in order to stop the Japanese expansion. And they were mainly in the South Pacific. So from 1943 to August 1945, the Allies went from an island to island, mainly in the Central Pacific and South as well. They fought the Japanese in many places, such as China and India. And of course, as you all know, a huge event happened which led to the fact that Japan agreed to surrender on August 14th, 1945, after the United States of America dropped the first atomic bomb, or the first atomic bombs, on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm pretty sure this is related to some general knowledge. I'm pretty sure that you had some classes of history before and you all know this, but I had to put this out there just in case, to have a proper introduction. So to round off with the Second World War, this World War was a conflict that involved virtually every part of the world. That's for sure. During the years 1939 until 1945, the principal belligerents were the Axis powers, that is to say Germany, Italy, and Japan, and they were facing the Allies, that is to say France, Great Britain, the United States of America, and later on the Soviet Union. You should know that both World War I, or the First World War, and the Second World War were one of the great watersheds or terrible events that human beings had to endure during the 20th century. it resulted in many things that we're going to discuss later on, such as the extension of the Soviet Union's power to nations of Eastern Europe, which enabled communist movement to eventually achieve power in China, which is quite troublesome nowadays, and marked decisive shift of power in the world away from the states of Western Europe and toward the United States and the Soviet Union. That was another era that we called the Cold War, which I plan to talk about after the series of the Second World War. So yeah, why I wanted to have this overview, because recently speaking, recently we were talking about what's happening with Ukraine and Russia and a possible Third World War, and many people and many historians are speculating what would happen in case there will be another war. So it's going to be a nuclear war, which is bad news actually. But yeah, now we're mainly focused on the Second World War. We don't want to spread panic or whatsoever. I'm pretty sure that they will find a way to fix things. Yeah, so this is just a short overview, right? And in the next video, we're going to talk about the causes of the war. So we're going to go back in time before the Second World War, probably explore the First World War as well and the Treaty of Versailles. We're going to talk about all these things that led to the outbreak of the Second World War. So I hope that this overview or this introduction has helped you understand what are we going to talk about, and probably I've given you an idea about the Second World War. And if you have any question, feel free to ask them in the comments below or message me, and I will answer you whenever I see your message. Otherwise, I tell you, stay safe. See you in the next video. Peace.